Hey there, I'm Nick and welcome to another episode of ScoreKeeping by Kenosha Opera Festival. Today I wanted to look at something which is very well traveled by lots of kinds of people. Whether you play tons of video games, play socially, or just have memories from being a kid or watching your kids play, you probably know this music. Today we're going to have a look at Super Mario and the music of Koji Kondo. So really quick before we dive in, I just wanted to say, I read this paper by Guillaume out of McGill University all about this. And I learned so much from it, he really deserves a plug. A lot of theoretical stuff, that side of this episode is influenced by reading his dissertation. So absolutely fantastic nerding, Guillaume, bien joué et merci beaucoup. So the mind behind all of these tunes you know so well in the Nintendo Super Mario games is Koji Kondo. He was never classically trained actually, or particularly dedicated to music. He got some experience in composing and arranging on both the piano and computer actually. Kondo was an arcade gamer and wanted to work on these games that he was playing. So when Kondo applied for his future job at Nintendo in 1984, without requiring any demo tapes, he would have his chance. I almost feel like I have to whisper that part so no classical musicians can hear me say it and freak out. I give. He's best known for his work on the Super Mario and Legends of Zelda titles, but the first game he worked on at Nintendo was actually an arcade game called Punch-Out! Kondo cites pop, jazz, and Latin genres, as well as rock bands like Deep Purple and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, as major musical influences. He's also cited the works of Russian composer Sergey Rachmaninov, who wrote 5 operas, by the way, as an influence, particularly his 4 piano concertos. His melodies were created with the intention that short segments of music could be endlessly repeated during the same gameplay without getting boring. He says in one quote that a beautiful melody leaves a deeper impression and that it's more inspiring. Though he also says that the tune needs to be catchy. In fact, that's the first thing he tries to focus on when writing a melody. It's tempting to hear phrases like endlessly repeating and knee-jerk to minimalism. Minimalism is a style of musical composition which does use looping music, repeating musical ideas over and over again for an aesthetic. Sometimes it's meant to be hypnotic, and sometimes it's just meant to stretch out a short amount of material into a longer form, but I think the initial reaction is a mistake. The effect of this music is a lot different from Kondo's. Here, listen to this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. Or this. They're all repeating the same bar or two over and 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 over. And they are fairly simple melodies, so what makes Kondo sound so different? In interviews, Koji Kondo suggests repeatedly that Mario music should match the visual presentation of the game 100%, so as to enhance the gameplay and make it more enjoyable. And this also makes each level identifiable within seconds. Each level has its own music, above ground, underground, Bowser's Lair, etc., and is associated with that place or even with characters related to it. Mahito Yokota, one of Kondo's junior associates in music composition at Nintendo, whose own credits include music for games like Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2, draws this comparison. Mario music is like music in a silent film. Just by listening to the music you can tell what kind of story is unfolding. That's the characteristic of Mario games. It tells players as soon as they hear it whether they're in danger or safe, and need to hurry or can take time. Kondo says the underground theme is meant to sound uneasy, but not too boisterous. It's a quiet single-note melody with long rests, while the castle is meant to be more ostentatious with lots of shorter notes one after another, which is sort of an established sound for the stately or military. I talk about this in our video about musical tropes if you want to check that out. Now these themes are called emotive, or sometimes motif with an F. These are used really commonly, but there's something that got going most formally under an opera composer named Richard Wagner. That salty old racist dog. He wrote his operas almost totally around themes for each person and place in the story. The river the opera starts in, the Rhine, the magic ring that the story centers around, Valhalla, and basically anything else in the show. He called these themes leitmotifs, which is where we get the German-ish spelling of motif with an F. Wagner insisted that the music, language, sets, lights, and absolutely everything should work together to serve the story. There was no dominant element to him. This idea of everything working together in balance he named Gesamtkunstwerk, or all-encompassing artwork in English. This is a term we've actually encountered before.
Gesamtkunstwerk.
And I can't help but think of this word while I research the Mario music and listen to Kondo and Yakoza talk about the music, telling you all about the level. So how does the music work? Well, usually in Mario games, you get a 2-bar phrase, then a repetition, then the next musical idea and its own repeat, and so on. The theme above ground, basically the main theme, looks like this formally. It goes A, A, B, B, C, A, A, D, D, C, D, and then it repeats. This really breaks up the form of the piece. We hear the music repeat often, but it's not in a pattern that's easy to predict. It's not always repeated right next to itself. This also makes it easier to switch into a whole other section of music on a dime if you enter or exit an area and the motif needs to change. Now the main theme, above ground, is like a little miniature fanfare, and its harmony is all in the dominant 5 chord. We've talked in other videos about how the notes of the 5 chord always feel like they should lead back to another chord, the chord built on 1 in the scale. It's kind of like the ready set of a musical ready set go. The theme also has a bunch of quick repeating notes, like a little trumpet herald. Heralds are traditionally used to signal the arrival of someone important, of course, so by starting this way, Kondo is setting up an expectation, underlining orally that we're about to launch into something important. Actually, he does this a lot. A number of the tunes in his themes end in what's called a half cadence. So you remember how I said the chord built on 5 always feels like it needs to resolve to the chord built on 1? Well, if it did, that'd be a cadence. But when you set up the 5 chord and the expectations that go with it, and then don't actually go to 1 like that, that's called a half cadence, for obvious reasons. And Kondo utilizes that to keep his music flowing, like this. Or this. A little more than half of those mini themes or bars, cells of music in the above ground theme end on 5, or they just exist totally in the harmony of 5, like in the case of the intro, so that when the next tune starts up on the 1 chord, it resolves the 5 chord from the previous tune. There are also lots of cool harmony things he does that I don't have time to get into right now. They're a little bit technical, but it's actually really fairly sophisticated music harmonically. Point is, he always gets back to that 5 chord. In this way, he's sort of making the tunes rely on each other. They never finish on their own, so they always require more music to come after, rolling on without a problem or a need to stop for as long as you decide to play the game. Forever. It never stops! So we can kind of see that, unlike minimalism, Kondo is using these techniques because the kind of medium he's working with demands it. He needs the music to go on. It's not repeating for an aesthetic effect, so the outcome is totally different. He also didn't have free reign to just use as many sounds or instruments as he wanted. Some of the oldest old school games had a max of 3 voices, so he was doing as much as he could to make that interesting and compelling without all the colors and timbres of a bigger ensemble. One device Kondo uses to keep things interesting is the half-octave rhythmic pattern. So that goes 3 plus 3 plus 2. It's also sometimes called a tresillo. This is a commonly heard pattern in Caribbean music, and it's very common in Kondo's music. What's interesting is that this is an asymmetrical rhythm. This means that the beat in a given measure isn't divided evenly. Usually, music is in some kind of 4 or some kind of 3. We might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, etc., or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or maybe 1 and 2 and something like that. But here, we have 1 and 2 and 3 and... But now that last beat is gone, or at least it feels that way. It's still 8 beats, but he's grouped them in an uneven way. The main theme, Above Ground, is actually a version of this. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and... Kinda cool. See that? It gives it a very dancey kind of vibe. This melody is also in major mode. which most folks associate with a certain lightness and pleasantness. Combining all that, the result is a sunny, literally Caribbean, fun, and most importantly, rhythmically interesting little tune, which helps keep us interested while we're playing. It really matches the bright, primary color, above-ground world of the Mario games. In film and games, music is also often used as an effect. When that happens, it's called Mickey Mousing, a term borrowed from, well, that might be a little bit obvious, where the composer syncs the accompanying music with the actions on screen, like the coin sound, or the power-up sound, or others. Besides the musical tunes, Kondo also did all the sound effects for the original Mario game, which might explain why they're generally so musical. He found this aspect of the word tough though, so he'd experiment. In the case of the one-up mushroom, he says he wrote a series of notes but then had them play really quickly so it seemed more like an effect and not a musical theme. But this also kind of means that your actions in the game have an effect on the notes you hear played. It's kind of like chance music, or aleatoric music if you're a nerd and you want extra credit, and there's a whole subset of art music having to do with this idea, spearheaded mostly by composer John Cage. Now we really can't get down to that particular rabbit hole or we're going to be here all day. I'm just going to move on, but I will say when I started researching this, I would never have put Mario music and Wagner or minimalism in the same mental box. Like never. Never would have occurred to me. But they're definitely doing some of the same things. So it's interesting how music can achieve the same goals no matter what type of storytelling you're doing, or how you're telling the story. But I guess that's really the lesson we can take away from a fun little video like this. Music, whether it's Super Mario or high opera, is one of the best ways to communicate feelings. And so there's really no music that's beyond you, or me, or anybody. You can like any kind of music you want. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please do like and share the video and make sure to click the subscribe button and ring the bell that's on it so you never ever miss new videos when we post. We have new episodes of scorekeeping and fun facts every month, and music and other uploads too. Do you notice anything else that's cool about the Super Mario music? I barely even got into the harmony. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you have an awesome and operatic day.